You want WPIAL football championships? You've got them this weekend. You want semifinal games? You've got them this weekend. It's a wonderful weekend for WPIAL football. And also, that's the bell. There's a change of classes coming in PIAA football and WPIAL football. Welcome to another edition of the Varsity Extra podcast here on the Post-Gazette Sports YouTube channel. I'm Mike White at Post-Gazette, along with colleague Keith Good News Barnes, the high school sports coordinator at the Post-Gazette. We are going to preview, give you a prediction, and talk about every game this weekend in WPIAL. It's 2 WPIAL championship games on Saturday, but Friday night, there are 8 semifinal games around the area. I think it's the best weekend of the year for WPIAL football because you got championship semifinals. And we're going to talk about some changes in classification. But before we do that, Keith Barnes is going to talk about Dave & Buster's.
Absolutely. Dave & Buster's is great. Sports fans, when the game's on, there's only one spot you need to be. Dave & Buster's in Homestead. Catch every play on massive HD TVs, fuel up with fan favorites like wings and burgers, and keep the fun going with the latest games and ice-cold drinks. Whether it's happy hour, game day, or just a night out with friends, Dave & Buster's Homestead is where Pittsburgh goes to eat, drink, play, and watch sports. Proud sponsor of the Post-Gazette Sports WPIAL channel. Now, Christmas comes early as far as I'm concerned because this is Christmas week for me. Championship week with the semifinals and finals. But like you said, Mike, let's talk a little bit about the classification changes coming up for next year because it's going to be interesting to see what the WPIAL does with certain teams shuffling up, shuffling down.
Well, Keith, the big news last week came out on Friday. The PIAA released the enrollment classification parameters for all sports. And they also let every school in the state know which class every one of their sports teams will be in for the next 2 years. However, they do not release the enrollment figures for the entire state for every school. They do that in December. But we were able to, I checked with some ADs ahead of time. A lot of them around the WPIAL and came up with their enrollment figures for some schools. And the biggest news, the biggest change for next year, for the next 2 years, Thomas Jefferson, the perennial 4A power, will be moving up to 5A for the next 2 years. That is big, big news. They've won 10 championships under Bill Chirpak and won 5 state championships under Bill Chirpak. That's the most of any coach in the state history for the WPIAL and the WPIAL history. So that is the big news. We can talk about that first and then maybe talk about some of the other big changes. But TJ moving up caught a lot of people's attention.
It certainly did. And I asked Bill Chirpak about that after the game against McKeesport last weekend. He was kind of dismissive about it. But then again, this was coming after a playoff loss. But he said, you know what, we're going to be where we are. We're just going to come out and play, and that's going to be it. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the classifications because when you look at how it all played out, South Fayette's going to drop down to 4A. You've got Trinity moving up. So you might have the Allegheny Six become the Allegheny Seven next year, and you might have Thomas Jefferson and Trinity just move into that conference with Bethel Park, Moon, Peters Township-Upper, St. Clair, Baldwin, and Bethel Park. I mean, that just seems like it would be the easiest way to do things. But it's going to be interesting to see how competitive Thomas Jefferson will be against the big boys.
I think they'll be competitive. But as Bill Chirpak said to me, that it's a really tough game week in and week out. They're not going to get any tomato cans, pretty much. So it will be interesting to see, but I think they'll be all right. They got a young team too, but they got Tyler Eber back, quarterback's back, Kane Egerton's back. So I think they might be all right, but it will not be easy for them. But the thing is, you don't know, Keith, because there's talk, and the WPIAL has said they will look at maybe doing a hybrid of putting like 5 and 6 together, because it appears that there will still only be 7 teams in 6A unless Butler would come back and join the WPIAL from an independent status. But talking to Bill Milan, their AD, I don't think that's going to happen unless they do some kind of hybrid. I don't think Butler wants to come in and play against all those teams of 6A again. So I don't foresee that happening. You mentioned a couple of the other big changes. South Fayette moving down to 4A. They've been in 5A for a few years now. Trinity had their best season since '86. They move up to 5A. Also, Central Valley a semifinalist again in 3A. They've teetered in 4A and 3A over the last 6-8 years. They will move back up to 4A. That is significant. So you could see them again in the same conference with Aliquippa. Wash High, 2A team. They moved down to 1A. Central Catholic with their enrollment. By the way, to explain this, PIAA does this every 2 years, and they do it with current students in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. People always say, why do they use 9th, 10th, 11th grade? Well, because it's the next 2 years, and those are the students that will be in 10th, 11th, and 12th next year. So you wouldn't use this year's 12th graders, right? Because they'll be gone. So that's why they do that. And some other interesting things. It does not matter what Aliquippa's enrollment is because of the PIAA classification competition formula. And it was decided Friday night by making it to the championship game. They will stay in 4A next year. I'm not going to explain why. It takes too long. It has to do with their number of transfers. They have at least 5 in the last 2 years. And by making it to the championship game, they had already been moved up. And if you have the 5 transfers and get 1 success point, you stay in the classification you play. By making it to the championship, they didn't have any success points last year. They have 1 this year, so they will stay in 4A. And the 3A teams are going, woo, woo. So they will stay in 3A.
It would have been interesting to see them if they put a conference with Avonworth. That would be fun.
Yes, Avonworth will stay in 3A, although, that would have been really, Central, they would have taken Central Valley's place probably in that conference. And then you've got
Parkway, so that's going to be fun too.
You got this also. Central Catholic's enrollment would put them in 5A. There's no way. If that team moves to 5A, they're going to get really criticized because, they get players from everywhere. So I don't see them moving down. They'll stay in 6A. But those are some of the significant changes, I think, in with the new realignment.
I think it'll be interesting to see Washington going down to 1A because that would make for a nice fight.
Will they go? Will
they
go, or will they stay up in 2A? I don't know. They may want to stay up.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility because if you're Washington, you've got a lot coming back next year. You're certainly going to have a pretty good team. So why would you want to drop down if you're going to be competitive in 2A? So, but it depends on what they decide.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Wash High will do. I mean, you would hate to see them be put in the Tri-County South Conference. I mean, really.
Oh my God. Well, at least the Tri-County really getting instant legitimacy.
Yes, true, but I don't think Washington would want to do that.
Which would also bring about the idea of you talking about pigs flying if a Tri-County South team ever won a WPIAL title, because then it would actually
that might happen then with Washington in there. But anyway, those are some of the big news in the PIAA classification. All right, Keith, let's go on to talk championships and give predictions. You ready to start? 4A.
Absolutely.
Saturday afternoon, these 2 championships are at Pine-Richland. And let me explain this again, because people just constantly ask us, why is 4A and 6A not at Acrisure Stadium? Why are they playing this week? Because first, Acrisure Stadium, the WPIAL is not going to pay rent to use Acrisure 2 different days. And in 4A and 6A, the WPIAL champion has to go. They go right to the PIAA quarterfinals. So they have to be done this weekend. The other 4 classes, they win. They go to the WPIAL or to the PIAA semifinals so they can be done next weekend. So that's why the WPIAL has 4 games at Acrisure next weekend. And that is why they do not have these 2 games at Acrisure. They are not going to pay all that money to have 2 games down there to have just 2 this weekend.
That makes all sense in the world. I mean, economically, it would just be ridiculous for the WPIAL to fork out that kind of money for 2 days rather than just 1.
Yeah, it's a shame, really. But even if they were all in the same schedule, I don't see the WPIAL playing all 6 games at Acrisure. I mean, it's
not feasible.
It's feasible, but number 1 is the money. I mean, it cost. People don't realize what it costs just to go in that stadium for the WPIAL. And number 2, I don't know if the Steelers would want, like if you played over 2 days and it's raining, would the Steelers really want them playing 6 games in 2 days down there? I doubt it.
Well, they at least always resaw it after the WPIAL championships. That's the one thing they have done consistently. Is after that last game, they do resod the field. So, but by the time you get to the 4th game down there, that field's trashed. So if you put 2 more games on there before it gets resodded, then all of a sudden you're talking about not only a bad field, you're talking about potentially dangerous field. And I don't think the WPIAL wants to put that kind of pressure on its players or on, as far as, having to be the team that have to play the last 2 games there.
The biggest thing is money still.
Absolutely, though. It's always about the money. It's got to come down to the money.
It costs well over 6 figures to go in there. So anyway, All right, let's talk about this game. McKeesport versus Aliquippa. It is Saturday. I think it's just after noon. It will kick off at Pine-Richland. So who do you like?
I like McKeesport, but the thing is, when I did my original prognostications and bracketology of this, I actually had this as my first round matchup. I thought Aliquippa should have been the 8th seed coming in. This should have been the first round game. But then again, that was also before Marques Council came back as the quarterback at Aliquippa, because everybody thought he was going to be out for the season with a knee injury. All of a sudden, he comes back. They upset Trinity. They came out with a big win last week. This is a team that's on the rise. When they beat Newcastle last week, avenged that regular season loss. And this game's going to feature, I think it's an interesting feature when you got Marques Council on the one side, and of course you've got Kemon Spell on the other. And Kemon Spell just absolutely torched Thomas Jefferson last week. They hadn't bottled up. I think he had 1 carry for maybe 0 yards. Everything else was positive yardage for him. He had over 300. He had 331 yards last week. I broke a 97-yarder. It was just absolutely amazing. But the 1 carry he had that I thought just made my eyes open was a 55-yarder he had. He looked completely stuffed at the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden he just popped out of there and took off right down the middle for a 55-yard touchdown. It's going to be amazing to see how these teams kind of play out and play off of each other. Well, and the other thing I think is interesting is going to be the matchup between Khalil Good on the outside, now that he's back playing receiver, against cornerback Javian Robinson from McKeesport. I think that's going to be a really interesting one-on-one matchup.
Well, who do you like?
I like McKeesport. I really do. I think this is McKeesport's year. They've been to the finals the last 2 years. They lost to Aliquippa 2 years ago. They lost to TJ last year. They beat TJ this year. I think they finally get the title for Matt Miller. This is his 4th time in there as a head coach. He lost the last 2 years. He's also lost to West Allegheny in Class 5A in 2016. McKeesport hasn't won a title in 20 years. This is a 20-year anniversary of that 2005 team that won the WPIAL and PIAA 4A titles. I think this is going to be their year.
Well, here's the thing. Aliquippa, everybody says, how surprising they got. Not really, because I don't think Class 4A was tremendous this year.
No.
And I think going through the season, when they had Marques Council, everybody said, no, it wouldn't surprise me if they got to the championship game. And without him, they were a different team. With him, although they haven't been lighting it up offensively the last couple of weeks, Keith. It's not like they've been running up the score. The key to this game is their defense. It's because I don't think they're going to score a bunch of points. I really, really don't. Key to this game is their defense and their run defense. If Kemon Spell, because he's a man, Kemon Spell, if he has over 200 yards again, McKeesport definitely wins. I mean, but the guy's averaging 13.8 yards a carry now. 13.8.
He's amazing. He's amazing to watch.
He really is. And the Aliquippa scored only 35 points in the past 2 games. I think for Aliquippa to win, they're going to have to score. I don't think they're going to hold McKeesport below. Their defense has been good lately, though, Aliquippa. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they have enough offensively to outscore McKeesport. I think they're going to need to score probably.
I'd say 30 points.
I was going to say I think they might need to score 28. And I don't know if they can do that. And I don't know if their defense has been good, though. 21-14 against Trinity, shut out Newcastle. So they have a chance. They're going to have to rely on their defense. They're going to stop Kemon Spell.
No, they're not.
Next game, 6A, Saturday evening. North Allegheny versus Central Catholic. 5th time yawn in 6 years. No, I'm not yawning. It's a good game. 5th time in 6 years in this game. They've met in the championship. I'll go first on this one.
Absolutely.
I think it comes down, North Allegheny stepped up a little bit last week, showed a much better version of themselves after getting destroyed by Pine-Richland and then lose to Seneca Valley. But I don't think they have of course they have a chance, North Allegheny, but same with them. I think they're going to have to score at least 28 points to win this game. And I don't know if they can do that. The only way I think the key to this game, North Allegheny is going to have to run the football. They were only averaging, going into the game against North, they were only averaging, Keith, 158 yards a game on the ground. And then they ran for 267 against Norwin. Luke Rohan ran for over 100. They need to run the football to control the clock because, and I don't know if they can do that. I don't know if they have quite enough offensive power to do that much against Central Catholic's defense. I like Central Catholic.
I like Central Catholic too. I mean, Owen Herrick's, he's 50 yards away from 2,000 yards passing, but I like the running back combination with Jaden Alexander and Roman Thompson. Roman Thompson has 21 touchdowns this season, and they kind of remind me a little bit of the Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery tandem in Detroit when you got the hammer with Roman Thompson and you got the speed with Alexander. I mean, that's just kind of what they do.
Hold on. You can't forget Chris Black. He ran for 100 yards last week.
I know.
It's three of them. So
it's three of them now. It's crazy. And Chris Black coming back after that injury is kind of interesting too, because he adds another dynamic to this entire offense. So when you kind of play the whole thing out, Central Catholic has it on offense, and I just don't think they're going to be able to be stopped. When you add a player like that, who was supposed to be their starter at the beginning of the year, got hurt, and is coming back now, I just don't see how North Allegheny is going to be able to stop every one of their weapons.
Yeah, they have too many players, Central Catholic. All right.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's the championship previews. We'll be back right after this with the semifinal previews, which will be kind of an interesting look. There's some interesting games out there this week. We'll be back on Post-Gazette Varsity Extra Podcast, sponsored by Dave & Buster's. Hi, I'm Post-Gazette High School Sports Coordinator Keith Barnes, along with my esteemed colleague, Mike White, and we're talking about the WPIAL semifinals now. So let's start it off. Where do you want to go? Do you want to start in 5A or 1A? You want to work your way down or work your way up?
Let's go 1A.
There we go.
Small to big.
Let's go. I'll jump in with this. We'll start off with the first game, which is going to be Bishop Canevin and Clairton. It's going to be, I think this is going to be an interesting matchup in a lot of ways because Jeanette put up over 30 points against Clairton after Clairton had 9 consecutive shutouts going into that game. And of course, Bishop Canevin, they have a new quarterback with DeMar Oles because Brady Wagner's out for the playoffs because of the transfer rules. This is going to be a really interesting dichotomy to see. For Clairton, they've got a game plan for somebody. They've only got 2 tapes on the entire year. And Bishop Canevin may have a path to figure out how to beat Clairton after watching what Jeanette did last week.
Boy, that was eye-opening what Jeanette did. They scored 33 points against Clairton. And Canevin, they're hot. They've won 4 in a row, 9 of 10. They seem to be rolling. I think Canevin can score. But they can't score enough to beat Clairton. Everybody talks about their defense. Their offense is really good, too. And I don't think Clairton will score enough to beat Clairton. I don't think Canevin will score enough to beat Clairton. Although you really got to wonder, though, Keith, did Jeanette put up 33 on them? If Canevin puts up 33, they might have a chance in this game. But I still don't think – I don't know if Canevin's defense can hold down that Clairton offense. But the only other thing I wonder is competition-wise. Although this game has returned in so many different ways.
Yeah, I know.
Jeanette, you go, oh, well, they played a good team. Well, they played Jeanette earlier in the year and crushed them. So, but I think I'm going Clairton.
I'm going with Clairton too, and here's why. I mean, I talked to Wayne Wade, and one thing he said was Jeanette was able to capitalize on things that it wasn't able to capitalize on the first time around. Like he said, they got to a 28-0 lead the first game because of the fact that they were able to. The big plays that Jeanette tried in the passing game, this time they connected, whereas the last time they were returned for pick sixes. And that's what helped them build that lead and kind of get on their roll. Bishop Canevin's, they're a different team with DeMar Olds at quarterback. I mean, he's not a guy who's going to go vertical on the field with you. He's going to be a guy who's more of a dual threat. He's going to run a little bit more and try to get into the short passing game, and that plays right into Clairton's strength, which is the front seven. So all you're going to do is you're going to bring Clairton up into the box a little bit more, and they're going to get a lot of pressure on Bishop Canavan's quarterback. I think Clairton's going to win this a little easier than you might think, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. And remember, Clairton beat them 24-0 last year in the playoffs.
Next game, Laurel Fort Cherry. Laurel's kind of quietly had a really, really good year. And a little history factoid for you here, Mr. Barnes. Laurel's trying to make it to the championship game for the first time since 1989. They only made it 2 other times. 1977, they lost. 1980, they won. In 1989, they lost to Clairton 27-20. The factoid.
Quarterback in that game.
The factoid. It was 21-20 and a touchdown clinched the game. Who threw the touchdown pass for Clairton in the semifinals? Wayne Wade threw it to Chad Licht for the win, for the kind of that sealed the win, 27-20 in the title game at Three River Stadium. So now Laurel and Fort Cherry. Well, Laurel lost to Bishop Canavan. Fort Cherry blew out Bishop Canavan.
Yeah.
And Fort Cherry threw 3 passes last week. Holy cow, what's next? Pigs flying. Matt Sig threw one of them. His second pass in 6 games. Says his arm is doing better. How about them, Keith? They have only thrown, I think it's 34 passes this season. Fort Cherry, the entire season. And by the way, Sig now has 196 career touchdowns that he has been involved in, whether that's running, passing, or returns. That's pretty special. And I think with them, and watch this Eli Salvini kid. He seems to be really coming on as a running back. Because of that, I think they win this game.
Oh, I think Fort Cherry wins this game anyway. I've kind of looked at Laurel waiting for them to fall off, and I was kind of surprised they won last week. I really was, but Fort Cherry's they're getting into championship mode at this point in time, and you could see it last week. I think they're just gonna keep building until they play, in my opinion, Clairton next week.
All right, next game. You want to take it 2A?
Oh no, you go ahead.
All right, Washington Seton LaSalle in 2A semifinal. They only met a few weeks ago in the regular season finale. Seton LaSalle won 27-14. Here's the key. Running the football for Seton LaSalle. They ran for 343 yards in that game against Washington. Watch Kymar Freeman. You can't let him get free. He ran for 257 in that game. He's really come on the last half of the season. Washington had only 121 yards rushing in that game. Seton runs the football, wins again.
I agree with that, but Washington kind of impressed me a little bit last week. Not only did they beat South Allegheny, but the way they beat South Allegheny. That was the Little Prexies took a stand last week. So I think it's going to be a little closer than the first game was, but I agree with you. I like Seton LaSalle to get to the finals this year. So let's go to the other game. Western Beaver and Steel Valley. Ooh.
What do you like?
I like Steel Valley. I know Western Beaver has that they had that 2-pronged attack. Wise Barbani's healthy again. They got 2,000-yard rushers on the team. But when you got Deron Barksdale and a guy who's a game breaker who can take it to the house anytime he touches the ball, I can't go against Steel Valley in this game.
Well, you hate to say everything relies on one player in the game, but everything does rely on Deron Barksdale. Listen to this stat, Keith. He has 29 touchdowns. He had 5 last week. He ran for over 200 yards. They have, besides Deron Barksdale, 2 players with 3 touchdowns. No one else on that team has more than 2.
Yeah.
So 2 guys with 3, no one else with 2. Barksdale has 1,721 yards. Now, I know Marshall and Sparbani are a good 1-2 tandem, but comes down to Western Beaver. Can you stop the bark of Barksdale? I say they can, but Barksdale will do enough. Steel Valley wins.
Okay.
On to 3A.
On to 3A. You didn't ding. There we go.
There we go. 3A.
This will be an interesting. We'll talk about the rematch first. Avonworth versus North Catholic, and what Joey Felitsky has been doing in the playoffs, it's just phenomenal. He has over 600 yards passing in so far in the playoffs, 11 touchdowns in 2 games. I mean, what he's been able to do since the postseason is it's phenomenal. I mean, he's putting up historic numbers as far as the playoffs go.
36 of 39. 36
I know.
of 39.
Percentage is crazy.
A lot of them are short passes. But anyway.
But then he's got to go against an Avonworth team that really held him in check and the entire North Catholic team in check the first time they met. Yeah, it's hard to beat a team twice in the same year, but I think Duke Joncourt's got this team going exactly what he needs to do. Luca Neal is he might be as good as he is. He might be one of the most underrated players in the WPIAL. I cannot see Avonworth losing this game. Not in a rematch, not against a team they know this well.
Well, when they played a few weeks ago, it was 28-0 at halftime, Avonworth. Joey Felitsky, as well as he has done, he finished 10 of 20 for 164. They are going to throw everything at him. They're going to come after him with blitzes, I think, and throw everything at him. He needs a gigantic game again, but Avonworth's too good. Avonworth is just too good. And by the way, Felitsky is over 6,000 yards passing now in 2 seasons. And he's now 20th on the all-time list for WPIAL passers in only 2 seasons because he didn't play as a sophomore. That's pretty impressive. But you know what? Who's impressive? The Avonworth Antelopes. And no, this game is not in Antelope country, but the Antelopes will be running at Acrisure Stadium a week from Saturday.
A week from Saturday. Agreed. Let's go to the second game. Ding. You missed the ding.
There
we go. We need the bell. Okay. Imani Christian in the champion against Central Valley. Wow. This is one of those games you kind of look at and say, which is better? Is it going to be Gabe Jenkins and David Davis, or is Mark Lyons going to have that defense ready to go to stop them in this game? And it's a really tough call with the 2-3 matchup here. It really is. I kind of like Central Valley in this one. I do. I think when it comes down to the coaching, it's going to be Leroy Johnson versus Mark Lyons, and I think Mark Lyons has a little bit of an edge in this one. So I'm going to take Central Valley.
Well, at least we'll disagree on one here. I'm going to Monty Christian. Central Valley's won 5 in a row. Last week they shut down a really good running back for Highlands, but they haven't faced 2 skill guys like Gabe Jenkins and David Davis. And they also have a couple others besides those 2. They both ran for over 100 yards last week. Jenkins is approaching 3,000 yards offense. I think because of that skill, if they don't make mistakes, penalties, and turn the ball over, Amani Christian wins. I'll go Amani.
There you go. We finally got one different. It's about time.
Up to 5A. 5A. Here we go. Going first. Pine-Richland Moon. Okay. I'll go. Moon has had 7 games this year decided by a total of 30 points. They're kind of the cardiac kids. They're 5-2 in those games, but none of those games is against a team like Pine.
No.
Pine is averaging 49 points a game. How about what Khalil Taylor did last week? 4 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 1 on a reception, 1 on a kickoff return, 1 on an interception return, 1 on a punt return. So returns are in. I don't think there's no other return you could score on. Am I right? A fumble return. So that's what he didn't do that. But he's not even the leading receiver on their team. Jalen Neals is, and they got Jay Timmons. They have too much. Moon's had a great year. Ryan Wynn's done a Ryan Wynn, and I always get him confused with Ryan Lynn. But Pine-Richland will win.
I agree. I talked to John LaDon last night, and he said Mac Miller's back too. So you're going to throw another aspect into that. Not only are you going to have Khalil Taylor, Jay Timmons, you throw in Mac Miller along with Ubi Strader. Wow. I mean, it's going to be a lot for Moon to stop, and I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. Shout out to Ryan Lynn. You're right. He's done a great job, but wow, I don't think they have enough to be able to stop everything that Pine-Richland's going to throw at them this week.
Last game.
And now the rematch.
The big one, Upper St. Clair, Peters Township. Who do you like?
I'm going to go with Upper St. Clair in this one. If you look at the first game they played, it was 24-20. Upper St. Clair was hurt. They were coming off of I think they were coming off the McKeesport game at that point in time too. But they've slowly gotten healthy. They're slowly getting better. And I think this is going to be a matchup of two of the best quarterbacks in the WPIAL with Ethan Hellman and Nolan DeLucia. They've got some great weapons around them. They got great running attacks. But for some reason, I just think Upper St. Clair is going to be able to pull it out this time.
Well, you said about the quarterbacks. A little note here, a little historical factoid. Nolan DeLucia last week passed Phil Jerkovic on the WPIAL all-time passing list. He's now the 6th leading passer in WPIAL history. So shout out to him. Now, Ethan Hellman, the last few weeks, Keith, he doesn't throw as much, and they don't have as much passing yardage. I think the key to this game, even though they have two good quarterbacks, I think DeLucia is really good. I think the key to this game, who runs the football better? Cole Newpaver carried 31 times last week, had over 100 yards again. Upper St. Clair had 2 running backs over 100 yards. I think this comes down to who runs the ball better and the defense against the run. And I'm going to take Peters Township. I say they go to the championship. I've said all year, them against Pine-Richland. I'll stick with that. The Indians go to Acrisure. For the second year in a row, they will play Pine.
And we've got one game left.
House. We got to mention the House. The House is in the PIAA playoffs. Friday night they play Myersdale from District 5, who's 11-1. That game is at Myersdale. So Westinghouse is in the PIAA playoffs in Class 1A. All right, who do you like?
I like Westinghouse. They've had 3 weeks to sit there and lick their wounds after losing to University Prep in the City League Championship game. It's all been about getting ready for the state playoffs, though. This is a team that wants to make a run. They want to get back to Cumberland Valley. I think this is a Westinghouse team that's finally going to be really motivated. Since they've been tested, they've been beaten a few times. They've had to take a couple of smackdowns. I think Dante Green's going to have them ready, and they're going to come out and they're going to show what Westinghouse is really all about.
They kind of limped down the end of the regular season, I think. Now, I don't know if they had injuries. I know Ismaili missed a game. I don't know what, but they kind of limped into this. Maybe they're 2 weeks off. They have 2 weeks off. Maybe they get healthy. I don't think this is a great Myersdale team. They're 11-1. They beat Conemaugh Township, but this is their first district championship since 2005. I think Westinghouse wins this game. Myersdale beat Conemaugh Township despite 5 fumbles.
Yeah.
So, but I think people have forgotten about Westinghouse. I still think they have a lot of talent. And maybe they got healthy in those 2 weeks. I'm going the House. All right, there you have it. Predictions on all the games. Don't forget, the semifinals of WPIAL playoffs in Class Single A, Double A, Triple A, 5A are Friday night. The championship for 6A and 4A is Saturday afternoon. We'll have all the games covered in the Post-Gazette on our website in our e-edition. Keith will be out at games both Friday and Saturday. I'm going Friday to, where am I going? Avonworth-North Catholic. Where are you going Friday?
I'm going to Upper St. Clair and Peters Township.
Okay. All right. So we'll be out and we have full coverage. So, and don't forget, we'll be back next week to preview and give our predictions on the championship game. So follow us, like us. We're on Spotify. Subscribe to us. It's becoming wildly popular, this show, I think, Keith.
I think it is too. It's about time. We're 2 wild men. It should be wildly popular.
Well, I speak for yourself here. So, all right. So until we talk to you again next week here on the Varsity Extra Podcast, I'm Mike Wood for Keith Barnes. Everyone, be good.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.
You still there? Yeah.